Every mountain accident leaves behind a story. An avalanche leaves broken snow. A storm leaves frozen tracks. A fall leaves obvious injuries. Investigators know what they're supposed to find. But on February 26, 1959, the rescue team reaches a campsite that follows none of those rules. A small canvas tent still stands on the snowy slope of Kholat Syakhl. Inside are boots, heavy winter clothing, food, cameras, everything the hikers need to survive the night. Yet the people who own those belongings are gone. Even stranger, the tent hasn't been opened through its entrance. It has been cut open from the inside. That single discovery begins one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. The first assumption is an easy one. Maybe these hikers simply weren't prepared. But the evidence quickly challenges that idea. The expedition is led by 23-year-old engineering student Igor Dyatlov, an experienced winter hiker who has successfully completed multiple difficult expeditions across the Soviet Union. His team is equally capable. Engineers, students, outdoor enthusiasts. Every member has previous experience surviving harsh winter conditions. Together, they are attempting one of the Soviet Union's highest-rated ski expeditions, a journey that demands discipline, planning, and technical skill. These aren't tourists chasing adventure. They're trained mountaineers who understand exactly how dangerous the Ural Mountains can be. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If anyone knew how to survive here, why didn't they? Originally, the expedition includes 10 hikers. But before reaching the most dangerous part of the route, one member begins suffering from severe joint pain. His name is Yuri Yudin. Continuing could permanently damage his health. Reluctantly, he decides to turn back. At the time, it feels like a personal disappointment. His friends continue toward the mountains, promising they'll meet again after the expedition. Instead, Yuri becomes the last person ever to see all 9 hikers alive. For the rest of his life, he will ask himself the same question investigators still ask today. What happened after they disappeared into the mountains?
Fortunately for investigators, the hikers leave behind more than footprints. They leave behind photographs, personal journals, and detailed notes describing each day of the expedition. Those records paint a surprisingly ordinary picture. The group jokes with one another. They pose for photographs. They ski across open valleys and snow-covered forests. Despite difficult weather, morale appears high. Nothing suggests panic. Nothing suggests conflict. Nothing suggests anyone believes they are in danger. Then, on February 1st, deteriorating weather forces the group onto the exposed eastern slope of Kholat Syakhl. They pitch their tent, prepare dinner, and settle in for the night. From this point forward, the historical record falls completely silent. The expedition is expected to return within weeks. At first, no one is concerned. In the Ural Mountains, delays are common. Harsh weather, difficult terrain, and unexpected obstacles often force experienced hikers to extend their journeys. But as day after day passes without a single message, concern quickly turns into alarm. Friends notify the authorities. Volunteer search teams are assembled. Soon, police officers, military personnel, and aviation units begin searching the vast wilderness. For nearly 3 weeks, they find nothing. Then, on February 26th, a search team spots something unusual on the mountainside. A small patch of dark fabric, barely visible beneath the snow. It is the expedition's tent. At last, investigators have found their first piece of evidence. But instead of answering the mystery, the campsite only creates more questions. Investigators expect to find signs of a natural disaster, an avalanche, a collapsing snowbank, anything that explains why the hikers abandoned their shelter. Instead, they find a tent that is still standing, partially buried beneath drifting snow, but far from destroyed. That immediately raises the first contradiction. If a massive avalanche had struck the campsite, why is the tent still recognizable? Then investigators notice something even stranger. Several long slashes have been cut into the canvas. Not from the outside, from the inside. Someone inside the tent deliberately created an escape route. Inside, almost everything remains exactly where it should. Winter boots, heavy coats, food, backpacks, personal journals, even cameras. Everything needed to survive the freezing night has been left behind. Experienced mountaineers understand one simple rule. In extreme cold, your shelter is your best chance of survival. Leaving it without proper clothing is almost certain death, which leads investigators to a disturbing possibility. Whatever forced these hikers outside must have seemed even more dangerous than the mountain itself.
Outside the tent, investigators discover the next clue. A line of footprints leading away from the campsite. At first, this seems encouraging. Perhaps the hikers simply evacuated the tent and walked to safety. But the tracks reveal something unexpected. Some footprints belong to people wearing boots. Others appear to have been made while wearing only socks. And a few seem to have been left completely barefoot. Even stranger, the footprints don't suggest panic. They aren't scattered in every direction. They form a single trail, leading downhill toward a nearby forest nearly 1.5 kilometers away. Whoever left the tent didn't appear to be running for their lives. They walked, calmly, deliberately, until the wind and fresh snowfall erased every trace of where they went next. If they weren't fleeing in panic, then why did they leave at all? The trail of footprints leads investigators to the edge of a dense forest. There, beneath a massive Siberian cedar tree, they make the first heartbreaking discovery. 2 members of the expedition lie frozen on the ground. They are wearing little more than their underwear, barefoot, exposed to temperatures that could kill within minutes. Nearby, investigators find the remains of a small campfire. Broken branches high above the cedar suggest someone had climbed the tree, possibly searching for the missing hikers or trying to see what was happening back at the campsite. At first, the evidence seems to point toward hypothermia. Perhaps the group escaped the tent, reached the forest, and desperately tried to survive the freezing night. But the investigation takes another unexpected turn. Between the cedar tree and the abandoned tent, rescuers discover 3 more bodies. Among them is Igor Dyatlov himself. Each appears to have been moving back toward the campsite, almost as if they had realized that returning to the tent
was their only chance of survival. If that is true, then what stopped them from reaching it?
For nearly 2 months, the remaining 4 hikers are nowhere to be found. Only after the spring snow begins to melt do search teams uncover them in a ravine, buried beneath several meters of snow. What investigators discover immediately changes the case. Several victims have suffered devastating internal injuries: broken ribs, severe chest compression, a fractured skull. Yet in some cases, there are surprisingly few external wounds to match the force of those injuries. The medical examiner later describes the trauma as comparable to that experienced in a powerful collision. One victim, Lyudmila Dubinina, is found without her tongue. Early reports also note that soft tissue around the mouth and eyes is missing from some victims. Over the years, these details become the center of countless theories. But forensic experts caution that bodies left for months in a cold, flowing water environment can undergo natural decomposition and scavenging, making some of these injuries less mysterious than they first appear. Even so, one question remains. If the environment explains some of the evidence, what caused the fatal injuries in the first place?
Over the decades, countless explanations have been proposed. The most widely accepted theory is a slab avalanche. Supporters argue that unstable snow may have threatened the campsite, forcing the hikers to escape immediately before the slope collapsed. Modern computer simulations suggest that, under specific conditions, such an event is possible. But critics point to several unanswered questions. Why were the footprints still visible? Why wasn't the tent completely buried? And why were some injuries so unusual? Others have suggested powerful katabatic winds capable of producing terrifying conditions on exposed mountainsides. Some researchers have explored the effects of infrasound, proposing that low-frequency vibrations generated by the wind may have triggered extreme psychological distress. Then there are the more controversial theories: secret military testing, classified weapons, radiation, even unidentified aerial phenomena. Each theory explains part of the evidence. None explains everything.
In 2020, Russian authorities concluded that a natural avalanche was the most likely cause of the tragedy. Many scientists agree that modern research has answered some of the biggest questions surrounding the case. Yet, not everyone is convinced. Even today, certain pieces of evidence continue to spark debate among historians, mountaineers, and forensic experts. Perhaps every mystery eventually finds an answer. Or perhaps some mysteries survive because the evidence can never tell the entire story. More than 60 years later, the snow has long since covered the footprints. The mountain remains silent. And the Dyatlov Pass Incident continues to remind us that history doesn't always leave behind clear explanations. Sometimes it only leaves questions.